first of all, let me thank properly Professor Papageorgiou. This has been a very critical but constructive reflection on how the churches approach the big challenges of globalization, secularization, and modernity. And I'm eager to hear how the assembly feels about all this. And it seems that Professor Economou decided that we change the order. We were supposed to finish with a voice from a hierarch, but Professor Economou asked me that I invite now His Eminence Metropolitan Andreas of Arcalochori, and also a professor of ecclesiastical history here in the Faculty of Theology. So, Your Eminence, please have the floor.
Όλα αυτά εγώ. Παναγιώτατε Άγιοι Θεσσαλονίκης, Λία δε αγαπητοί αδελφέ εν Χριστώ.
Your Eminence, dear Reverends, professors, dean, distinguished participants, what is the meaning of theocentricity? And what is the meaning of nation-centered approaches? In the God-centered phase, God-centered case, we are working in order to attract grace, be it within human passion. We aren't as hard-skinned, so hard-skinned as to commit crimes, in other words, sin without being afraid of God, I wish to say. So let me get back to what I was saying. Without godly nature, we have taken the first step to distance ourselves away from God. And we're slowly moving away from the center. Is that clear? The ideologies derived from the weakening of theocentricity have led us to where we're standing today. This is the truth, whether we like it or not. Let me be more specific. We're talking about this because we're living in the 21st century. If we lived in the 20th century, or those of us who are over 65, my generation, used to have many bright ideologists, excluding myself. However, if you don't peel the orange, you can't find the essence of it. Am I clear? Now, from the moment another value comes into play, late Vasiliki Papoulia was the one who opened my eyes and used to tell us that we are in front of a new cycle in history. Enlightenment and Renaissance, and now modernity, nationalism or Marxism that suggests that the dictatorship of the proletariat would be the solution to every problem. Hellenism is a sovereign culture in the Balkans and in Asia Minor. You can't change that. Hellenism has an official language, an official cultural expression, which is the Greek language and the Greek culture. You can't change that. Nationalism in the Balkans and the creation of nation-states, all the leaders used to study in Greek schools, and this applies to Bulgarian leaders or North Macedonian leaders. And there's nationalism around us. What is the pioneering culture? No flag, no state, but a real valuable cultural background. This is the Greek culture. Romeosini, Hellenism, and so on. As we have communities in Europe, across Europe, and the robust spiritual dynamics in Europe and other big cities. Izmir, for example, people leave Izmir and go to France or move abroad. So this dynamics shapes the new elite, and I would agree with you that we're talking about an elite, which forms the new ideology of our times, which drags along the empires and creates the new pattern, the nation state. We're in crisis right now. I often read Cavafis. Which poem? The Barbarians. And try to interpret, with the help of Cavafis, current developments. Hellenism plays a key role in that pioneering, which was the first independent nation state in the Balkans or Eastern Europe. Greece. Well, why? Navarino, naval battle, and so on. 1821, and the struggle that covered all the eastern territories up to Istanbul. So Hellenism is a pioneer thanks to the Hellenic culture. We have the constitutions of 1821, the most liberal, the most radical constitutions of 1821. What happened to these constitutions when Capodistrias came over? What happened to them when Otto came, King Otto? The constitution, whether we like it or not, returns with the help of the army in 1843. And in 1909 with the Wood events. Who were the people who supported the constitutions? It was the army that brought back the constitutions in 1843 and in 1909. Looking at the 19th century, we can see theocentricity. The Peloponnese, the Hellenism in the Peloponnese was questioned. It had collapsed. I do not intend to tell you more, but I will go on. To conclude, what was the criterion for the building of the Greek nation-state? Was it the language or the religion? The Greeks were the ones who believed in Christ. All of the constitutions. 1922, the Asia Minor disaster, then the Lausanne Treaty. What was the criterion for the population exchange? Religion. Turkish-speaking Orthodox came to Greece. Greek-speaking Muslims went to Turkey. Therefore, theocentricity, i.e. the popular base, the congregation who are deeply religious. This goes on in the 20th century. Now in the 21st, we're confronted with a new reality. The people, the believers, become the elite's vehicle through which ethnocentricity emerges, including influences from Enlightenment, the French Revolution, and the creation of the nation-state. This becomes clear in the case of Bulgaria. Let me be more specific. When the Athens elite under King Otto decided to have an autocephalous church against the Constantinople Patriarchate, well, they proved wrong. So 17 years later, 1850, they sent a letter to the Patriarch and restored the ecclesiastical order. Pharmakidis, and this is in his honor, when in 1870 realized what he did with the Bulgarian exarchate, he had a stroke, literally, and he died. Bulgaria distanced itself from the Patriarchate. They said, okay, we're Bulgarians, we speak the Bulgarian language. So the vehicle for the ethnocentricity of the Slav-speaking populations was what created the nation-state. Again, through the army. What were the Bulgarian people during the Macedonian struggle? They were troops, they were military formations. The Bulgarian state became independent in 1808. Again, the army played a major role. And let me get to Kemal's case, who went to Anatolia and said to the people that he was faithful to the Sultan, whom he considered to be a hostage to foreigners in Constantinople, and incapable of reacting without the initiative of his people. So, in theory, in order to attract the theocentricity of Islam, Kemal took it upon itself to rescue the Sultan. In the Balkans and Asia Minor, and in the East in general, it is clear that there is a part of the population who are deeply religious, be them Orthodox, Armenians, Jews, Muslims, transformed in the 19th century, and the transformation is not completed in the 20th century, it is completed in the 21st. And the challenges we're facing are true. But grace does not depend on the volition of Varkalohori or its bishop. The situation can radically change with the help of God. There's a historical event we're following. Church, government, state. To conclude, what's the position of the church in a nation state? We're an argumenon of the state. Maximus, I hope you agree with me. The more liberal the state, the looser we get. We're given more room. And we accept that. During the Ottoman Empire, either under a sultan or an emperor, we accepted the primacy. But when talking about doctrinal issues, we need to react. Serfs and the nobility of the Western world have also intervened. St. Gregory Palamas recognized the Roman Catholic Church as a church. That's a reminder to all of us. He's an ethicist, but he recognizes the Roman Catholic Church and its conduct. And I'm finishing with the following.
Η πραγματικότητα είναι αυτή.
This is the reality we're facing. A slow but steady distancing from the mystery of God. We're ideologizing the ecclesiastical and theological discourse. I'm the first one to not have tasted the mystery of God. I've been making a living for 30 years, and this is how I've come to this conclusion. Your Eminence, please pursue the cultural spring you have initiated. We'll be on your side. A big hand.
Thank you, Your Eminence. I think for all of us who are not experts in ecclesiastical history, that was a difficult reflection to follow. But His Eminence tried to describe the shift from ethnocentricity, from theocentricity to ethnocentricity, using the model of the church and state relationship in Greece and how the modern state developed. Thank you for this historical background, strong historical background you provided. And now, last but not least, we will conclude with the final speaker, Professor Economou, who actually wanted to remain in the end. Professor Economou is the head of Department of Theology at the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. Professor, you have the floor.
Πρωτίστως την Επιτροπή για την πρόσκληση που κάνανε και στην ταπεινότητα.
To begin by thanking the organizing committee for inviting me to take part in this wonderful high-level conference. Raising a large number of considerations for us to reflect on through diversity, through our different stances. This is what the essence of a scientific conference is about. We will come to excellent outcomes. So it is a pleasure, and I'd like to thank all the previous speakers who worked hard in order to share with us here their fertile thoughts. Looking at the subject matter of the conference on politics as a role for the expression of Christian values in day-to-day life, I'm thinking, I wonder whether the Christian values in day-to-day life or in politics play a radical role, or whether as the Bishop of Arkalοχώρη mentioned, I'm very fond of him, whether we're simply in a blissful naivete because we haven't become aware of the magnitude of our disgrace. I'm thinking about the political parties. I will not dwell long on the political parties in Greece. I only keep some personal friends. I'm not involved in party politics anymore. But I'm thinking about our own political parties in Cyprus. I want to make a couple of comments about Cyprus. I'm thinking about our own parties. Leonidou is an exemplary personality when it comes to Christian values. He's a postgraduate student of the Department of Theology, and he will receive his master's degree this year. When a leader of a left-wing party was in power, we gave him a call to congratulate him. He told me very enthusiastically, "This evening, I do believe there is God, my dear friend." How did you discover him all of a sudden? Because he was consciously an atheist. He told me, "I visited Jerusalem 6 times. Well, did you pray? Did you kneel? Did you make a pilgrimage? Did you light a candle? No, he said, my mother did that. And asked me to take up the Ministry of Education. He wanted to be sure that nothing wrong would be done. How can I fit in? I asked him. There's nothing in line with my own Christian identity. I spent 50 years at the University of Thessaloniki, and this conference reminded me of how close I felt to the people. Even the building of the school, the Faculty of Theology, was truly touching. Christianity can't be a decorative element. Christian values cannot be just a cream on the cake, an instrument of politics, not the essence of Christian teaching. A number of bullet points. I'll speak from the historical and mathematical perspective. Creation, there was a blessing, God's blessing from man, was the formation of a society in order to ensure harmonious coexistence of people. It was how the population would increase and men would also dominate the rest of the creation. As Vasilius argues, man is a social, harmless animal, not monastic, not a beast. Communicating with each other is part of our nature. The connection of man with the creation demonstrates the direct relation between man, God, and the creation, and the fellow human being. So the future depends on the balanced, harmonious development and evolution of rational beings, including man. So the fall of man, described in the 3rd chapter of Genesis, resulted in the upturning of spiritual and social elements that are part of man's nature, with the tragic consequences for the entire creation. The fall of man dragged along the entire creation. So man will save creation. This is why Apostle Paul told the Romans, the entire creation accompanies us in our suffering. So man is responsible for the creation. This is why the ecological problem is a major political and educational problem. Should be placed at the core. Every moment we wake up in Cyprus and see clouds of dust hanging above us here as well. So this is a problem that knows no borders. We inhale this dust. Our top priority should be the ecological value, a proponent of which Apostle Paul is, Christianity as a whole. Apostle Paul said it was man who subdued creation, and the entire creation is suffering to our days. Based on the aforementioned anthropomorphic descriptions, one can point out anthropological, theological, and sociological elements. Number one, man was created by God as an entity, matter and spirit, body and soul. God created man from earth and blew spirit in him. The fundamentals of Christian values. And we need to look at the biblical fundamentals expressed by Paul and Christ. Over and above the material nature of man, this denotes spiritual gifts and holiness, sacred nature in word and communion. These are the spiritual gifts the Spirit God gave man. Reason, free will, communion, sanctity. Number two, the creation of civilization is inherent in creation. Creation of a society through population increase and the dominance of man on creatures through a balanced evaluation of capacities. Now we're witnessing a reversal of the entire picture. Man does not dominate creation, society, or the world. He dominates fellow human beings. I need 2 more minutes. Equal recognition of man and woman. This is a given. If you read the first and second chapter of the Genesis. Number 4. The recognition of the Creator, apart from creatures, and his evaluation transcends idolatry. As a principle for life, the contribution of Christian values entails a transition from polytheism to monotheism and the end of idolatry that creates a new perspective for life and a new perspective for culture. Last but not least, the fall is a reversal of the perspective of biblical theology and creates a rift between man and creation. This is when the so-called ecological problem emerges. In the theology of Paul, the notions of sin and grace are expressed embodied in a man of sin and a man of grace. teachings about Adam. All these points are clearly made in the works, in patristic works, and they're actually elaborated on not as doctrines, as we heard earlier, but as theological, historical, anthropological, social, political perspectives that lend meaning to man's historical course. I used 4 minutes. I'm sorry.
It's a different understanding of time in Christianity. I would like to thank all of our speakers and, of course, all of the participants for their patience. We will open the floor for a few questions, and I would like to ask you to specifically address the panelists and be precise in your comments. Dr. Zorbas.
Είναι 16 σελίδες. Τώρα, εγώ είπα 2 πράγματα.
Άγιε καθηγούμενε, για σας η ερώτηση.
Για σας η ερώτηση. Κώστας.
Μιλήσατε...
Κώστας είναι ο διευθυντής του.
Μιλήσατε...
Dear Abbot, you spoke of symbolism on the month of May. 29th of May, 1453, the fall of Constantinople. 29 of May, 1979, accession of Greece to the European communities. So when we acceded, Le Monde newspaper wrote that the land of Philokalia accedes to the European Union. I don't know what we could have provided since 1979. I think we have a general erroneous view, as we have the memoranda on the one hand, the Philokalia on the other. I think Ms. Papageorgiou spoke of why, but what is it that we made us unable to state a position in the European Union and be back to scratch? Thank you. I shall endeavor to be brief. We have lived this period of accession of Greece to the European Union, and we managed at the very end to have a joint declaration on Mount Athos, and that, I think, was a success of Greece within the spirit of Philokalia, that Greece understood that Mount Athos, the holy mountain, should maintain its particular character. And it was important to have this declaration for religious and spiritual reasons, to protect and respect the status of Mount Athos and to take into consideration social legislation in terms of establishment of monks. This was a very important declaration which functions in favor of Greece and Mount Athos. If we were unable to affect Europe, is because we don't live the Philokalia. This is a spiritual approach. We've had many speakers, and we have communication with Cistercians and Benedictines, our point of view and our expression, we simply produce slogans which do not provide for great help. Thank you.
On the floor. Nikos, Dr. Dimitriadis, please.
Christ is risen. Professor of religious education at American College in Thessaloniki. I would agree with the abbot. There is time. I am very optimistic, but although my heart rejoices from what I've heard from the panel, three of my professors, you spoke of ecclesial expression. Now, listening to my students and as I'm also a composer, I understand that the world is tired of empty slogans, both from religious and non-religious bodies. And the question is if we need innovation in church expression and ecclesial expression, and whether modern values should be included in the church agenda.
Yes. Not, but why not to address to the Bishop Dagmar Winter, since she's she's from.
And can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, the question would be, the question is to you whether the way the European, how can we convince, if there are any innovations that we can use in our speech, in ecclesiastical speech, in order to convince the European Union that has to include the Christian values to its agenda. I'm looking for innovations.
Ποιος θα ήθελε να απαντήσει?
You asked me the easy question, yeah. I think we need to listen very carefully, because sometimes what the presenting question or issue is not the underlying issue. That's one thing. I think we need to earn trust by working with people honestly, not using the slogans, as has just been said, but really getting deeply engaged, relationships, grow relationships, and by their fruits you shall know them, said Jesus. So I think there's a question also of what can we show from our work that suddenly gets people to think, actually these people have something to contribute, rather than just say, oh yeah, we're very important because we're the church.
But till now it's not happening.
Say it again?
Till now it's not happening.
Sorry.
I mean, by now it's not happening there, because the European Union does not include Christian values in its agenda.
I think they don't recognize, to some extent, the origins of the values. I think there is a sort of widespread cultural assimilation of Christian values, and I think it is very important that as churches we remain alive, because as someone said that earlier in the discussion, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, if we snap the connection to the root, that eventually it will wither away. So I think people just need to recognise where that comes from. And I guess religious education is a really, really important thing that is we are also seeing thinning out. So,
It's okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to give the floor to His Holiness for a final comment.
Αν μου επιτρέπετε, σε σχέση με την ερώτηση την οποία έκανε ο κ. Δημητριάδης.
On the question of Mr. Dimitriadis and what Sister said, it's important is what witness do we provide as Christians to this world, particularly in the European Union. People who have no connection with faith and Christianity, they see people or churches or communities which endeavor to maintain their position within society, to try to claim certain rights is not bad, but to try to base and underpin the power I had within time on the basis, and this is the important part, not the very values which I as a Christian accept, but in a different view of things, which sometimes delete these values from my life as a Christian, then I cannot provide a witness. And anybody can ask, why do you want to promote these values when you yourself do not implement them? Inter-Christian relations, are they at the level they should be? No. Do you want to speak of on the inside of each of our churches? Let's not do it. At least I speak of our church. Yes, we all seek the same thing. We all seek the same thing, Christian values, promoting Christian values, to help politics and so on. But I think with our lifestyle and the way we adhere to Christian values, to ask others to adopt these values in the European Union and elsewhere.
Holiness, for your honesty. And a final comment by Dr. Vigdalis, please. Brief, if it's possible.
Εάν οργανώσαμε αυτό το τραπέζι,
we organize this round table so that we can see whether Christian values in society are understood by the same way by the church and by the various power structures. The European Union is a mechanism which should solve problems for its citizens. The European Parliament and the European Commission deals with solving problems. What we look for is, does the church understand these problems with the same way as the European Union? Problems are the same. Are they the same as described by the Church of the European Union? This is a basic question. The second basic question is, how does the world look at this problem. What does it anticipate and expect from the European Union or the churches? If the world is hungry, if they have economic difficulties, and the European Union talks of the environment and the church of banning smoking, then we have a problem. This is the interesting part. And if we looking for something here, is that these Christian values, which should be promoted as an answer, as a response to these problems, if these values are the values that each country should approach. I will read to you something. Listen to me just for 1 minute. We have an over-concentration of wealth, and these are the words of a politician, and imbalances which undermine the rule of law, welfare state, and make politicians prisoners. We need a strong Europe, but a strong Europe can only happen if we have powerful democracy and powerful European citizens. We have over-concentration of wealth, and therefore imbalances which undermine the rule of law. Does the church understand this? Does the church perceive this? Does the church show this to its congregation? There are problems because there is an over-concentration of wealth. Can the church deal with this matter?
We cannot exhaust this conversation. We need many more meetings to talk about this. A brief reaction by His Eminence, who asked the floor, and then we really need to close. Σεβασμιότατε, παρακαλώ.
Ναι, συμμετέχω στην αγωνία του κυρίου Μιγδάλη.
I share the preoccupations of Mr. Migdalis. We came to know Europe at a time of welfare and of well-being, social democracy, and so on in the 80s. Was this prosperity in its own? When Europe was prospering, were the people who starved? Now, today we're in a different reality where Europe is dismantled by migrants. Could this be the revenge of colonies towards the Metropolis? But these are spiritual problems. In other words, all these matters, we can approach them if we have a good time and we live a comfortable life within a continent. But St. Sophronius of Essex or St. Silouan, that if one man groans because of an injustice, if one sins, then the entire creation groans and moans. In other words, if we try to find this revelation of God, this lies within the Orthodox Church, but all churches participate and partake in the mystery of the deity, and each church shares this mystery of the revelation.
Thank you, Your Eminence. And now Mr. Leonidou will provide some concluding remarks.
Ευχαριστούμε. Ευχαριστώ, Κατερίνα. Ευχαριστούμε όλους και τον καθένα.
Thank you all, and thank you each one of you individually, and you, Katerina, also, for the impeccable moderation. I think this discussion was very fruitful and has contributed greatly to our way of thinking. I think we have here the yeast that will provide further thinking. And this conference is a first step towards a long-term effort to bring about what will unite us. Congratulations to the organizers. Thank you very much for your patience. But before I would like to give the floor to Abbot Eliseos for a short comment. I do not have anything important to say, but for our church and for our people, Mr. Migdalis, we need time to assimilate the accession of Greece to Europe. It was not done within Europe. Europe was not an ally at the time, and politicians should work in creating confidence in the dialogue. And for this reason, the church, as burden sharing, should examine the question of sin. It's not only a question of apostasy from the faith. It's not only personal sin, but social sin, which is related to social justice, to concentration of wealth and exploitation of the weak. I think we ought to examine this, and that would help further edification. Thank you.